Good morning, everyone. Welcome. We have a very full house. If you are in the back and you do not have a seat, we do have some seats up here. I can see at the front. It's okay if it has a sign on it. Um, if you're sit at a sponsor table, I see some open seats. You can just sit anywhere there's an open seat at this point. Okay. Good morning. Welcome. We're really glad you're here for the Reach Out and Read Minnesota's 2026 Spring Benefit. I'm Chris Hoplin. I have the honor of being the executive director of this organization. It's really a joy every year to see this room filled with a lot of familiar faces, but always every year a lot of new faces too. So if this is your first time with us, we're really grateful you're spending your morning here at Wilder. I want to welcome as well our virtual attendees and thank you so much for being able to attend this program from wherever you happen to be today. Today is about the children and families at the heart of this work and the role that each of you plays in helping us reach them. My hope is that you leave today not only more informed about what we do, but genuinely inspired by what's possible together. Before we go any further, I want to take a moment just to recognize a few groups who made today possible. First, our sponsors. Their generosity allows us to host this event and ensures that more of every dollar goes directly to the families that we serve. Thank you first to our leadership partner, All About Books. Most of the beautiful books that you see on your tables today are from our vendor and sponsor, All About Books. Next to our literacy partners, Children's Minnesota, Best and Flanagan, Barefoot Books, who's been an excellent new book vendor this year. I know many of you have received their books this past year. To Fairview, Health Partners, and Delta Dental. Thank you for sponsoring. Additional thanks to these important organizations and companies that have supported our work today. I also want to thank our incredible table hosts. Many of you are here today because someone invited you and that person might be hosting a table. So the table hosts help bring the room together. They introduce new people to our mission and make this gathering feel really welcome. Finally, a huge thank you to our staff and our board of directors, many of whom are here today. I really have the privilege of working alongside some of the smartest and most committed people I know. If you are a staff member or a board of director, would you just raise your hand to be recognized? Thank you so much. So for those of you that might, at the end of this program, want to learn more or may have questions about the work that we do or how you might get involved, please see one of us. We have these ribbons on our name tags, and we'd be happy to chat with you or answer any questions you have after the program. Okay, I get to start off our morning by honoring and celebrating an exceptional champion of Reach Out and Read Minnesota with our Diane Loeffler Legislative Champion Award. Representative Loeffler served in the Minnesota House of Representatives for 15 years, from 2004 until her death in 2019. She served District 60A in Northeast Minneapolis, where she was also a lifelong resident. By all accounts, Representative Loeffler was a fierce advocate for Minnesota's most disadvantaged populations. While serving in the House, she authored legislation related to healthcare, children, the elderly, property tax relief, and many local issues. She served as a mentor to new leaders, passing on her enthusiasm for public service. This work, in addition to her job as a healthcare policy analyst, meant she truly understood the intersection of health equity, literacy, and public policy. And she was an early and ardent supporter of Reach Out and Read Minnesota. So today, I have this opportunity to present this award to Representative Dave Pinto. Yeah. You have a lot of champions in this room, Representative Pinto. Lots of supporters here. Representative Pinto has been a frequent and consistent champion for Reach Out and Read at the state level and has been instrumental in each of our 3 successful campaigns for state funding. Representative Pinto is a state representative representing the Highland Park and West 7th neighborhoods here in St. Paul since 2014. In his career, he served on and been chair of numerous committees in the legislature, too many to list here this morning, In these roles, he's always made a clear effort to educate his colleagues on the science of early brain development and the impact of early childhood investment. On multiple occasions, he's invited Reach Out and Read aligned clinicians to testify for his colleagues, including our medical director, Dr. Gigi Chawla, and one of our guest speakers today, Dr. Subrahmanian. Thanks in no small part to Representative Pinto's efforts, Reach Out and Read Minnesota now receives an annual grant of $250,000 from the state. We attribute much of our growth to Representative Pinto's efforts on our behalf in the legislature. Please give a big round of applause to our Loeffler Award winner and Reach Out and Read champion, Representative Dave Pinto. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this honor. I had the chance to work with Representative Diane Loeffler for a couple of years at the beginning of my time in office and towards the end of her time, and I just knew her as someone who was buoyant and driven for kids and for families and for everyone in Minnesota, and such an honor to receive an award in her name. And I felt such a connection with Reach Out and Read through the years. I just love the I love that basic concept. I think many in the room have heard this. You provide the books, we'll provide the doctors, and it's just making sure that with this book, there's so much that can be done to make sure that kids get that great start in life that we all want them to have. I was thinking as just during that lovely introduction, and thank you, about educating my colleagues. You referenced that. Just yesterday, there was a bill on the House floor. I talked about, I don't know if you know, there's constitutionally dedicated funds to K-12 education, as well there should be, and the proposal related to having those funds be used better and have additional funding go to ages 5 to 18. And I wanted to make sure just yesterday on the floor that my colleagues recognized that we spend 1/10 as much for kids 0 to 4, and yet we know, and so many people in this room know, what a difference those earliest years make, and how really we have just the opposite investment in terms of what we really need to make sure that we have the kind of benefits that come from getting kids off to that great start, and the harms that come when we don't do that. There's so much that we know about young kids and about what's best for kids and families. There's so much that we know based on evidence and research, and just so much that we know based on common sense and in our gut. And there's so much that we don't do based on how we know in our policy. I've been trying to work to close that gap. So many people in this room have worked to close that gap, and especially Reach Out and Read has worked to close that gap. And I just will call on all of us, including myself, to continue to do that work, because we know that when we do, we all do better as a society, and we know that those precious young kids do better as well, and what a lovely thing that is. So thank you so much for this honor. I'm so glad to be with you again this morning, and let's continue to work together to get kids the great start in life they deserve. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Representative Pinto. All right, now I get to take a moment to ground us in our work, what we actually do here at Reach Out and Read, especially for those of us here who might be newer to what we do. So Reach Out and Read Minnesota is a Minnesota-based nonprofit. We're part of a national network that began 37 years ago at Boston City Hospital. Back then, a group of clinicians had a simple but powerful instinct that something as basic as sharing books with young children could have a meaningful impact on their development. Today, we don't just believe that, we know it to be true. Thanks to decades of research and advances in brain science, the evidence is clear. Books build better brains and better bonds. What I love about our model is how simple and effective it is. It starts early when a child comes in for a routine well-child visit. That visit might be with a pediatrician or a family medicine provider or a nurse practitioner, but most importantly, it's someone the family knows and trusts. During that visit, the provider gives the child a brand new, age and developmentally appropriate book, often in the language the family speaks at home. But it's not just about handing over a book, it's about what happens next. That book becomes a tool and a conversation starter and an opportunity for the provider to talk with caregivers about the power of reading, talking, and sharing books together in those early years. And they do it in a way that builds on strengths, affirming what caregivers are already doing right, strengthening their confidence, and deepening trust. Families leave not just with a book, but with encouragement, knowledge, and a sense of, I can do this. And then something really important happens. It continues at every well child visit from infancy through age 5. That experience just repeats itself. We call that the dosage effect, and we think that that's where real lasting impact takes hold. Decades of peer-reviewed research show that Reach Out and Read works. Families who participate are more likely to read together and more often, and their children show stronger language development, with even greater gains through repeated exposure. Just as importantly, the program strengthens relationships. Families report more trust in their providers. Providers see their families as more engaged, and attendance at well child visits increases. Here in Minnesota, that impact has grown from just 3 clinics in 1997 to over 300 clinics statewide. We reach 165,000 children last year through more than 2,500 clinicians around Minnesota, and we distributed over 320,000 new books. And because we believe, yes, it's amazing. And because we believe culturally responsive care is essential, those books reflect the families that we serve, with titles in more than a dozen languages and stories where children truly see themselves. The funds we raise today help us to continue doing just that. Now I get to share about an initiative we've launched over the past few months called the Books for Neighbors Project. As most, if not all of you here know, recent events here in Minnesota created real fear in our communities for families in our communities. So much so that families began missing medical visits and staying home from the care and support that children rely on. But in true Minnesota fashion, when challenges show up, so do people. And we were proud to step up alongside our many partners. Many of you are here in the room with us. With generous support from All About Books, Scholastic, and our National Center, we worked with clinics and community organizations to deliver almost 10,000 new books. Really, an entire huge storage unit filled with books, along with hundreds and hundreds of bilingual early learning materials. And these were delivered directly into families' homes by our partner organizations. The effort was powered by just an incredible community of staff and volunteers who spent hours and hours and hours sorting and labeling and delivering books to our community partners, donors who made it possible, media like WCCO and KSTP who helped shine a light on the work that we were doing. We're so deeply grateful and really proud of what we were able to do together over the last few months. And after the program, you can check out some of the books and the materials that went out to families. There's a table in the back where you can check out the items. So we know that even when the landscape feels tough and uncertain, Reach Out and Read has momentum, both here locally and nationally. Locally, we brought on 12 new clinics since we were together here at Wilder last year. Most of these were in greater Minnesota, as you can see. This includes Lake Superior Community Health Center, which is a federally qualified health center in Duluth, and Mankato Clinic Children's Health Center, which is so big, it will allow us to serve an additional 2,600 children and families in the Mankato area. Nationally, Reach Out and Read welcomed Dr. Lynette Fraga as our new CEO. Dr. Fraga has more than 3 decades of leadership at the intersection of early childhood development, health equity, and mission-driven innovation. Most recently, she was the CEO of Child Care Aware of America. As an affiliate of the Reach Out and Read Minnesota, or Reach Out and Read Network, we're thrilled to have her lead this next chapter. So here in Minnesota, we are our own 501c3 organization, but we work closely with our affiliates in the National Center around the country. We learn from each other and we help each other grow. And it's really, we love to see the way that Reach Out and Read is growing, not just here, but all across the country. And finally, I have the honor of introducing Reach Out and Read Minnesota's medical director, Dr. Gigi Chawla. Dr. Chawla is the chief of general peds at Children's Minnesota, with oversight over primary care, rehabilitation services, behavioral health, including development of an inpatient mental health pediatric unit and partial hospitalization mental health programs. She's often called upon by the media for her pediatric expertise and is a regular contributor for the Minnesota Parents column in WCCO's segment to Ask the Pediatrician. And I am really excited to hear from her this morning. So welcome, Dr. Chawla.
Thanks, everyone. For those of you who this is not your first breakfast, you know I always start this out by taking a picture of this audience from this view. Hold on. Oops. It's so great just to see so many of you and have this room filled with people who are wanting to start their day off and supporting Reach Out and Read. All right. So, one of my favorite parts of this annual breakfast together is to reconnect with many of you. I don't know how all of you have been feeling, but for me, life has been feeling like it's been moving pretty fast these days, with changes afoot in every sector of life, breaking news that's flooding my phone, and I constantly feel driven to be reactive. So it feels really good to be here with you in this moment, to slow down, to connect again, and to be here where we can control and think about what has been truly meaningful for our lives. So here we are, a group of grown-ups from all sectors sharing how special these beautiful books are on this table and the connections they bring and the potential life trajectory changes that are made with these books in just a few short moments. I have been a pediatrician for many years now, and Reach Out and Read is one of the few things that has kept me both able to dive deep with a family and connect and affirm them, and I actually find a path out when it's been too heavy or too hard, or when I know there's nothing else that I can offer. Because whatever the circumstance that brings a patient in for a clinic visit with their doctor or nurse practitioner, books have been an opportunity to level that encounter. Babies, toddlers, and kids have absolute and sheer joy when they receive a book, regardless of race, creed, family makeup, dynamics, income, safety, disability, pain, or disease. Nothing compares to that chubby little hand and those excited wide eyes as they reach for that book. And actually, nothing compares to the look on those parents' faces as they watch their children reach for that book. I don't really have the right adjectives for what that look is like, but it's the same look that parents have, regardless of race, creed, family makeup dynamics, income, safety, disability, pain, or disease too. It's that look of sheer gratitude and pride that their child has been seen. There's no doubt that for those of us who are clinicians that get to experience seeing and holding both of those two views at the same time of the baby, toddler, or child reaching for that book and that of the parent and their pride, boy, our cup just runneth over with joy and humility that we get to be part of that. So that is what the start of the Reach Out and Read moment is all about. And what follows is an immediate opportunity to build trust, to take down any walls that were present before the visit, to praise a child's dexterity, affirm their development, based how they interacted with that book, and to tell parents how wondrous their child is. I have found that it can be a bit overwhelming for parents to hear that their child's brain development, language, social, emotional, and academic development is literally in their hands. Even though it's true. Parents feel tired, stretched so thin, and they can feel judged or defeated before they even start. And honestly, maybe this seems a little strange to say, but I'm not sure that all parents really know how to engage their baby when they hear that brain development is in their hands. I could tell you that I didn't. But my continuity clinic during my residency was at HCMC, shout out HCMC table. And those pediatricians and nurse practitioners taught me what it looked like to read to a baby, taught me what it looked like to serve and volley with a baby, and show that in just a few moments in an exam room by example rather than by direction, how it's done. And they inadvertently taught me how to do that as a parent too, not just as a doctor. It's so easy to see why patients and families come back for their clinic visits when we offer Reach Out and Read. Most families say it's the book that brings them back. But we all know that it's everything around the book that brings them back. Being seen, taking down the walls and holding parents in that moment of vulnerability, affirming their parenting, and showing them how to promote early brain development. I've been pretty lucky to have been able to use Reach Out and Read my entire career at Children's Minnesota with patients, and lucky to support it as the best return on investment for child development that we can make as a community. In my 25 years thus far, healthcare has endured a public health crisis, many public health crises actually, economic crises, political crises, access crises, and scientific crises. Throughout all of this, Reach Out and Read has been my bedrock for my practice and for thousands of other clinicians across the state of Minnesota. No matter what is going on outside of the walls of the clinic, when I offer that child and parent a book, that is the most important thing happening in the world. Those small moments of opening the cover, turning the pages, pointing to the pictures, laughing and smiling, it's the purest human connection and one that has so much potential for good. These are the kinds of experiences that we want to provide for every single child in Minnesota, and that's precisely why we are here. When we make Reach Out and Read thrive at clinics across the state, we will all have a better shot at helping our children thrive. And so with that, it is now my honor, excellent, to present an award to a fellow clinician who has done an exemplary job of helping his young patients thrive through Reach Out and Read. Each year, we present our Gerald Gilchrist Medical Champion Award to an outstanding clinician who has gone above and beyond to serve their young patients and make Reach Out and Read program all that it can be at their site. This award is named after Dr. Gerald Gilchrist, who was an early champion for the Reach Out and Read program in Minnesota and who practiced as a pediatric hematologist oncologist at the Mayo Clinic for 30 years. So it is especially fitting today that our award is going to another Mayo Clinic doctor this year. I am so pleased to share that this year's winner is Dr. Seth Gregory, a pediatrician at Mayo Clinic Health System in Red Wing. Dr. Gregory's leadership and enthusiasm have been instrumental in establishing the Reach Out and Read program at Mayo Red Wing Clinic. He has been a constant advocate for our program, both with his colleagues in the clinic and within his health system. In their glowing nomination, Dr. Gregory's clinic staff shared, quote, "He brings unmatched compassion, skill, and dedication to every patient and family he serves, and he has helped to foster a culture of literacy within the clinic." End quote. As you can see in the photo, Dr. Gregory is not only an advocate within the clinic, but also in his community. He volunteers with Reach Out and Read Minnesota annually at the Minnesota Children's Book Festival in Red Wing. According to Danette, our program specialist for Southern Minnesota, it quickly becomes evident how deeply connected he is to his patients and their families when they are at this festival. She says, quote, his young patients are consistently enthusiastic when they see him, reflecting the strong rapport he has built through his attentive and compassionate approach. Dr. Gregory's commitment to patient-centered care fosters an environment in which children feel valued and supported, and they respond with attentiveness and confidence in his guidance. End quote. Please help me in congratulating Dr. Seth Gregory on receiving his award.
Well, thank you for having me today, and I'm truly honored to receive the Gilchrist Award. I didn't come with any prepared remarks, so I'm going to go off the fly, and it's kind of hard to follow that. But I was first introduced to Reach Out and Read 13 years ago when I started my pediatric residency at Mayo Clinic. And my first impression with it was, as an intern, not really knowing what I was doing and walking into those patient rooms, having a book in my hand to read to the child was really like just really natural. I knew how to read. And walking into that room, it immediately just lowers the tension. Like there's anxiety from the parent, there's anxiety from the child, anxiety for the doctor. And just being able to have a book and sit down and read to the child immediately helps like start that visit out on the right foot and really helps build trust. And that just compounds at the future visits where we hand out the books. And so when I finished my residency, I took my current job in Red Wing and at Mayo Clinic Health System. And we didn't have reach out and read at that time. And I really did notice the difference. It was harder walking into those rooms, harder earning that trust, harder to get the 2-year-old to talk. Here the parents promising you they know how to talk. But and over the years we kind of realized just through our community partnerships, there was a need to help improve childhood literacy in our community and kindergarten readiness. And so our clinic kind of thought about strategies on how we could help, and Reach Out and Read came to my mind as a perfect program for that. And so through partnering with Danette Cubitt, the Southern Minnesota program specialist, she helped us get that program out and running that first critical year where we didn't have any funding. And it was really well received by all my coworkers in our pediatric department. And everybody really just noticed that, yes, it like helped improve trust, no matter your view, like between the patient and the provider. You could have different views on different things, but everybody could agree that reading to your child was important and building that bond with them is important. And they also came to realize how important it was for assessing like development. Reading to a kid is like you can really get good insight on their development during that visit. And so it was a big success. And then, so we looked at our funding for future programs, and we had the Jones Foundation in Red Wing. And we applied for a grant, and we got grant funding for the subsequent years. And it's been great. We've kind of evolved our program a bit to empower our nursing staff. So like it's actually our nursing staff that go through the books and choose which books we hand out. So we get real buy-in into the program. So everybody has pride in it. Everybody is like on board with it. The providers are handing out the books, reading the books, and nursing has pride in that they help choose those books. And so it's been great. And yeah, going to the Minnesota Children's Book Fair, it's awesome seeing the kids come up and like talking about their books and saying, hey, and I really encourage you guys to come out and visit. It's a great event every year. But thank you so much for this award. It's actually the only award I've ever won. So I'm really honored. So, but no, thank you so much, and just thank you for what you do. Like you play a big impact in children's health and well-being, and I just appreciate seeing all you here. It's very encouraging. So thank you.
Well, as we can all tell, this is the first of many awards to come for Dr. Gregory as well. Thank you, Seth. Today, we are truly blessed to hear from clinicians for our keynote address today. This year's keynote theme is how we heal together. We are going to have two clinicians briefly share about what it has been like to care for their patients these past several months, how they have worked to meet their community's evolving needs, what we can do to help families heal, and the role that Reach Out and Read has played in that work. We do have a slight change in our program today as Dr. Kelly Stecker got called to clinical duties today. I guess that's the dangers of being an OB provider. So I'm instead delighted to introduce our two keynote speakers instead of three. First, Ms. Sheyanga Beecher. Shay began her career as a public health nurse in East Baltimore. After receiving her master's in nursing and master's in public health, she went on to practice as a pediatric nurse practitioner in South Africa, Haiti, Ethiopia, and Tanzania before joining the pediatric primary care practice at Hennepin Healthcare in 2012. She co-founded the Hennepin Healthcare Vaccine Mobile Clinic in 2020 and now leads the expanded mobile health program, which provides maternal and pediatric care to under and uninsured populations of color across the Twin Cities metro area. And our second keynote speaker, Dr. Krishnan Subrahmanian. Krish is a pediatrician at Hennepin Healthcare and the Red Leaf Center for Family Healing. He serves as the Chief Medical Officer at Hennepin Health Insurance, Hennepin County's Medicaid program, and is also an Assistant Professor of Pediatrics at the University of Minnesota, where he is the co-chair of admissions for the medical school. He is the father of two, and his favorite children's book is The Velveteen Rabbit. Actually, Shay, we didn't hear what your favorite kids book is, so be ready. Okay. And with that, I'll turn it over to our two speakers, and we'll get started. Thanks, Shay.
Before I start a little bit talking about our past few months here in Minnesota, providing care and along the themes of healing, I wanted to go a little backwards so you understand my why. I came to the US when I was 3 years old, and like many immigrants, my family came for economic opportunity, all the social support services here, and Minnesota's reputation for community. But being an immigrant in Minnesota is not easy. You speak with an accent. Your winter coat smells like curry and spices. Your strict parents are scared to let you go to your American friends' homes, and you buy everything secondhand, which makes it an easy target for teasing. But growing up, I read books to learn English and to understand what cool was in American culture. And I'd often leave the public library with stacks of books. First, it was the stacks of Boxcar Children books, and then it was stacks of the Babysitter Club books, and then it was the Sweet Valley High books. Reading was an escape for me, but it also made me feel a little bit like an outsider, more alien than the alien registration number on my immigration documents. The stories were typically about white kids with blonde hair, blue eyes, solving mysteries, going to sleepovers, becoming class president, and none of these stories were similar to mine. Now, as the medical director for Hennepin's mobile clinic program, I often see immigrant kids like myself. Because of my lived experience, I make sure our team takes the time to help families understand how our health system works, how to access care, and how to feel less alien than they probably already do. Giving Reach Out and Read books on the mobile unit is one of my favorite things to do, and I'm not saying this because I'm speaking at the spring benefit. I take more time than I probably should choosing the books with culturally specific characters and bilingual text so parents can then read to their kids. This creates for a moment of pause during our mobile clinic visits, a moment that sometimes immigrant families rarely get. Fast forward, now taking time to pause, I learned, was really essential during Operation Metro Surge. As Black and Brown families sheltered in place, our mobile clinic ramped up hours and expanded our scope to meet an overwhelming need. Normally, we handle about 30 referrals per month, maybe 1 or 2 voicemails a week. During the surge, we received nearly 500 referrals in about 2 months, 50 voicemails a day, which threatened to close down or shut down our voicemail box at least twice. And I personally received texts and emails to me and my cell phone asking if we could see just one more patient. We went from providing care 5 clinic days a week to 7, caring for pediatrics, postpartum, and then prenatal patients. By mid-January, it dawned on me that our team was the only outside entity many families were seeing. For example, I remember during a well-child check on the mobile unit, reviewing the diet of an almost 2-year-old. During the conversation, when we were asking the mom to sort of recall what they had had for meals over the past day to a week, she mentioned that she was giving her almost 2-year-old 5 to 6 bottles of diluted leftover formula because they hadn't left the house since the holidays to get food. Soon our team shifted and we began providing more than medical care. We bought and delivered mutual aid supplies, the formula, the diapers, the wipes, fresh fruits and vegetables, cream of wheat, peanut butter, toiletries like shampoo, toilet paper, soap, toothpaste, and even birthday cakes. When our team became really burned out and the mobile unit was so full of supplies that it was really hard to walk around inside, we partnered with a team of realtors, and they took the baton from us and finished the last leg of the lift. On the mobile unit, we also began providing delegation of parental authority forms, or DOPA forms, so families, high-risk families, could identify guardians for their children in case they themselves were deported. And then some of us assigned ourselves as DOPA guardians when the families tearfully acknowledged that they did not know anybody else in Minnesota. And in the middle of all this, we gave out books. We used every reach out and read book we had for well child checks, and then asked for donations for Spanish bilingual books and also activity kits to help those kids spend those long winter days indoors. The books brought smiles to the children's faces. They gave our parents and our care team a moment to forget the world outside the mobile unit. Because if you recall, the world outside the mobile unit, it was scary and it was volatile and it was dangerous. During peak Operation Metro Surge, we cared for patients living on the same street where ICE vehicles were parked. Our EMTs would walk up to the front doors of homes where on the same blocks, agents were actively door knocking, asking for citizenship papers. We visited apartment complexes where ICE cars were stationed outside facing the main entrance, and inside the cars, the agents were waiting with their weapons clearly visible. The team was caring for a newborn just a few blocks from each street when Alex Preddy was shot. And non-white members of our team, including myself, carried photocopies of our passports and kept it on us at all times we were providing care. In that chaos, books gave us a way to breathe. Children saw characters with the same Black hair that they had. And then parents could sit with the child on their lap and point to a picture of a Pero or an Aranya. And for a few minutes, everyone could feel safe. And everyone could feel a little less like an alien in a world that had told them otherwise. And that is why Reach Out and Read matters so deeply. In moments like these, whether inside a crowded mobile unit during a federal enforcement surge, or sitting with a child discovering a character who finally looks like them, we're reminded that healing is not a solitary act. It happens in a relationship, in a community, and the small rituals of care that tell families that they belong. Reach Out and Read gives us one of the simplest and most powerful tools to do that. A book that opens a door, softens fear, and reminds us of our shared humanity. As clinicians, as neighbors, as Minnesotans, we heal together by seeing one another fully and by making sure every child, no matter where they come from or what they've endured, can find themselves in a story and feel at home. Thank you.
This button here. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. I was really heartened to see Gigi take her selfie, her traditional selfie with us this morning, because it reminds me that traditions matter. Personal traditions, family traditions, organizational traditions. And I know a tradition that has long been held here at Reach Out and Read is dad jokes. And so I'm going to begin with a couple. I have a friend who's a librarian who recently got bumped off a plane. It was overbooked. I recently picked up a book on anti-gravity. It was so good I couldn't put it down. No, thank you. I appreciate that. No, I love this organization. I love it so much. And as I look around at this room, I love it so much because only an organization like this could pull together so many of my heroes, so many people I so deeply admire, people who have been mentors, teachers, and people who every day go out there and do the work, support families, support kids. And one of my heroes is Sheyanga. She was the person who oriented me on my first day at Hennepin Healthcare. And as you can see, she does incredible work along with community. And yet I know that in this room, there are so many heroes. You're not going to stand up right now. You're not going to share the things you did. But I know in this room, there are people who stood out in the freezing cold, who delivered, who did patient care when they didn't need to do it. And it is just an honor to be in front of a group of people like that. Nothing comes right after an emotional, beautiful story like Shay's, like a stem and leaf plot, but I hope to bring that up. I was asked to think a little bit about how do we heal? What are the processes? What is the literature? What do we do to go forward? I say to every family who comes in for vaccines, I saw a lot of 2-month-olds yesterday. And as you know, there's a lot of vaccines at your 2-month visit. And I say to every family, I say, thank you so much for being here. Because this is stressful. It's stressful on baby to go through this experience. But you being here, you giving that hug afterwards, matters so much. And there's actually a lot of empirical data. This is just cortisol levels pre-post vaccine, but there's actually a lot of cool studies out there, if you look, that talk about what happens after the cuddle and how cortisol levels and stress is mitigated. I bring this up because we cause a lot of stress. We cause a lot of stress for kids, and stress is part of life. We know that it is inherent to this lived experience we have. But what so many kids have experienced over the last few months has been trauma. And there is a difference. And I looked at this definition of trauma, and it just started to resonate with me. A frightening, dangerous, or violent event, a threat to a child's life or bodily integrity, or witnessing a traumatic event that threatens life or physical security of loved one can be traumatic. And something that overwhelms a child's ability to cope. I think what Shay described, what so many of us have seen here in the last few years, and particularly the last few months, fits that definition. I bring out stress is not trauma, right? We all have stress. We have that physiological stress that gets us through events, through important situations, tests, exams, games, competitions. But there are the toxic stresses and the traumas that occur. But I think in red, it says stressful events are buffered by a caring adult relationship. And so I think about it on this spectrum. Do we have protective, nurturing adult caregivers to buffer the impact? I have said before, and it's so true, every child needs someone who's crazy about them to help them through the difficult times. So just briefly going into trauma, I was limited in time, so I didn't go deep into ACEs because you all know a lot about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, things like threats to physical autonomy, hurtful words, other stressful situations as an early child can lead to a heightened sense of chronic stress. It's one thing to have that stress to run from the lion in a short-term situation. But if that's always on, you can imagine what that does to one's physiology and to one's way of approaching the world. And so if we start to see young people who have fight or flight all the time, that brings up this constant level of chronic stress. And we know that can have long-term significant impacts. The data shows Felitti, the group that did ACEs, have shown that this leads to real consequential negative health outcomes, both in mental health and physical health. And long-term, this can lead to potential mitigated, but also early death. So Sheyanga and I were talking a little bit about, so what's out there in the literature about an experience like what our community has gone through, Operation Metro Surge, threats to young people over their immigration status. And there is some great data, some great studies. Roche did a prospective study of 547 adolescents, and then they found that the family of deported individuals, regardless of their immigration status, had higher levels of internalizing behavior, so suicidality, long-term alcoholism, and externalizing behavior, so violence or conflict. And then longitudinal data showed that changing the way that parents interact with the system changes parent-child relationships. I think one thing as immigrant kids learn is that we mediate for our parents often the way that our families interact with community. And they found that this actually added to extra conflict in family and stress. Complex relationships, but ultimately what we see is that threats to parents, to immigration, to family, ultimately lead to internalizing and externalizing behaviors. But we know that there's more than that. We know that in the short term, straight up anxiety, sleep, physiological effects are present for young people who have encountered immigration enforcement. And we know very well over the last few months that health access and avoidance is a big deal. We can see our colleagues who have worked in the space of adverse child effects did studies on specifically migrant youth, specifically kids involved with immigration enforcement. And they developed a new survey that looked at the risks associated with that dangerous journey. And they found also significant impact on those youth. But we're here to talk about how we heal. You know, I think from an organizational perspective, from a community perspective, it's really important first that we recognize that we have impact. We have the ability to understand that trauma affects young people and trauma affects young people for the long term, and that it's our responsibility to respond and resist that kind of traumatic experience. That's a question for our policy champions. That's a question for our organizational leaders to say, what are we doing to mitigate the risks of re-traumatizing young people? But boiling it down, there's a lot that we can do on the daily. There's a lot that we can do in our clinics with young people. You know, it starts with listening and putting kids in control. One of the things about stressful situations, traumatic experiences, is that kids lose control. So how do we listen, put kids in control, answer questions? We need to cue in to the signs of anxiety and nerves in young people. You know, oftentimes this will lead to behavioral changes, sleep changes, physiological changes. We need to cue into those and ask about them. What stressful situations, what scary situations have gone on for a family? One of the things I love about Reach Out and Read is that it models. It models wonderful interactions, and it models calm. It models a quiet time in which relationships are built. And then, as I started with, routines, rituals. The ritual of sitting down with a parent and reading a book every night before we go to sleep. Those things are healing. There's some incredible local resources, and maybe Liam, we can send these out. But the Institute of Child Development here at the University of Minnesota and Children's Minnesota have put together some amazing resources that I think we can all use to help young people through this very difficult time, and families. But when I think about the pathways to resilience, when I think about the ways that we combat chronic stress, it is so much about relationship building. It is so much about empowering young people to have a relationship with someone and doing things with those people that are crazy about them. So for children, we think about having supportive adults, having positive role models, having a community that they're connected to, and all these activities on this screen, exercising, talking, having music, art, activity together really is the pathway through which we build the combating of trauma. Christina Bethel at Johns Hopkins, one of our colleagues, has done a lot of research on positive childhood experiences and the ability to protect against internalizing and externalizing challenges. So you look through this list, the ability to talk to a family about feelings, feeling connected to family and adults, feeling connected to friends and to school and to community traditions. Having those elements, those positive childhood experiences, was actually protective against depression and poor mental health. After today's event, go Google Oprah and trauma. And Oprah has this incredible 60 Minutes interview about how she talks about how she went through incredibly traumatic experiences, but that it was school, her relationships with her teachers that got her through and helped her heal her trauma. We've talked about this. Really, the brain develops in the context of relationships. And so our ability to empower families to have these serve and return, these conversations with little ones is so powerful. I'm really proud at Hennepin that we work in this model of helping parents heal their own trauma at the Red Leaf Center so that they can then be better, more present for their young people and help their young people get off to a better start. And I'm gonna close with my favorite book, The Velveteen Rabbit. It's a really important book to me for a number of reasons. This is Bubby. Bubby is my 8-year-old's little one. And as I was bringing him here today, I pulled him out of my pocket and he said, "Daddy, Bubby doesn't like dark places." So I pulled him out immediately. But the Velveteen Rabbit means a lot to me because it reminds me of Bubby. It reminds me of how important that connection with our young people are. It reminds me of reading to my children. And it reminds me that love is developed through relationships. If you read this story, it talks about this rabbit who wants to be real, but real isn't how you are made, said the skin horse. It's a thing that happens to you when a child loves you for a long time. It's not just to be played with, but it's when they really love you that you become real. It doesn't happen all at once. It takes a long time. Generally, by the time you are real, most of your hair has been loved off, your eyes have dropped out, and you get loose in the joints and very shabby. But these things don't matter at all because once you are real, you can't be ugly, except to people who don't understand. Love is hard work. Relationships are hard work. They take time, but that pouring in, that investment is what makes both relationships real. And as we have learned, it's how we combat trauma. It's how we combat chronic stress. And then I also love this story and this excerpt because if there's anything that represents what our community has been through, If there's anything that has shown us that, you can get, your eyes can drop out. You can go through a difficult time. Your hair can be loved off. But through that comes love. Through that comes the ability to heal. And so this book really reminds me of the spirit and heart of Minnesota, and reminds me of the spirit and heart of so many in this room who have done so much for young people. Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you, everyone. And thank you to Shay and Krish. You can see why they are our keynote speakers today. We have so much to learn from them. I do not think we've got time for questions as a group, Liam, unless you tell me that we do. Okay, Liam says one quick question. So we're going to go with 1 minute answers. Shay and Krish, your whole life story in 1 minute. No, kidding. All right. Maybe Shay starting first. What gives you hope? What gives you the ability to pick up each day and keep doing what you're doing?
Hello? Yeah. Okay. I don't think we could have gotten through Operation Metro Surge, which to me was one of the darkest times in my time here in Minnesota, without the yin and the yang. I mean, as we saw the destruction and the fear and the chaos, there were also community members and neighbors that brought in the calm and the process and the trust and the love. And I think Minnesota Nice used to be like tongue in cheek a little bit, but man, not this past year. It's legit. Minnesota Nice is what gives me hope.
Thanks, Shay. Krish, same question. What gives you hope and gives you the ability to get up each day and fight a good fight?
Yeah, my answer is the Timberwolves. the being in a park on a Sunday, seeing yesterday a grandmother holding that 2-week-old, and just the whole visit singing and talking to that baby. Families know what to do. Community knows what to do. And I think one of the great joys that we have as providers is just giving them that space, the tools, and the empowerment to do what they do. And they'll figure it out. And as Minnesota showed, people figure it out. And it's just an honor to walk alongside families as they do that.
I love you guys. Total heroes, guys. All right. With that, we're going to turn it over to our board chair, Hy-Vee Thompson, to close us out. Thanks, Hy-Vee. Thanks, guys.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you to our amazing speakers for sharing their experiences, their knowledge, and their inspiration for how we move forward as a community. So let's give them another round of applause. Thank you. As Gigi mentioned, my name is Hy-Vee, and I have the honor of serving as board chair for Reach Out and Read Minnesota. I just have a few closing thoughts to share with you all before we depart for the day. There are so many people, as we've talked about in this room, who have been doing amazing work to support our neighbors, our families, and our communities this past year. And that's not by choice or by chance. We've chosen to do this work. We've chosen to be here together, even when it's been really hard or uncomfortable or has come at high costs. We do this not just because it's the right thing to do, but because we know that when we invest in each other and in our children and our families, we all do better. As you've heard today, Reach Out and Read Minnesota is one of the things that can help build families and community and build a future for our kids and for what we want. And the clinicians and the healthcare workers in this room and many more across the state will tell you that the Reach Out and Read Minnesota program is really vital to the care that they provide to patients and families. And this is all possible because of you all here in this room and watching at home or in your office. So if you're feeling as inspired as I have today, please give. Please make a gift in any amount that is meaningful to you. The support that you provide makes a huge difference for all of us. Thank you, Liam. So I encourage you to make a gift using the QR code up here. There's also a QR code in the brochures that are on your tables. If you prefer to give via check, please find one of the staff members afterward. They have I think the blue ribbons on their name tags. As of this morning, we've raised just over $41,000, and we're hoping to raise an additional $6,000 to meet our goal. And I know with the people in this room, we can reach that goal. I think we can exceed that goal. So just please give in an amount that's meaningful to you. These funds make sure that we can be there for our clinics, to support the clinics, to help get high quality books into the hands of kids in multiple languages. And it helps our clinicians provide the great care that they do in our state. So I'll give you just another moment to pull out your phone, pull out your wallets as needed. Thank you so much for being here. We are so grateful for your support. Thank you so much to our amazing speakers, our award winners, our staff, and our board for making today possible. You can drop your name tags in the baskets on your way out. Feel free to grab more coffee or any treats that are left on the table and stay and chat with us. We'd love to talk more with you today. Thanks again for your time and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thanks.
There it is.
So thank everybody for joining us. Again, if you want to grab the URL in the chat to give now, we'll stay up for a few more minutes. But just wanted to say thank you all before we log off, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Happy Tuesday.